Hey guys, welcome to another one of my videos, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to keep your league competitive, a solution to keep your fantasy owners with losing records more involved throughout the season. Because let's face it, none of us want to have a league where like 2 or 3 people quit throughout the year because they're out of it, they have nothing to play for. It's never a fun atmosphere to be in. And so basically you always have to have incentives for your league. And no, I'm not talking about money. You need to make sure that your league always has something to play for. And there are 2 ways to keep owners with losing records from quitting for the year. And the first is playoffs, and the second is draft picks. So about playoffs. In my league, I always have the most amount of playoff slots available because anything can happen in the playoffs on any given week. I remember in my second year of my league, I had the best team in the league for that year and probably my best overall team ever in fantasy basketball. And everyone thought I was the clear-cut favorite to win it all that year. And it was 10 teams, 8 teams make playoffs. So in the second round, my team they got cold, and I got crushed in the second round of playoffs, and it sucked. So as long as you make playoffs, there's still hope that anything can happen. And the other reason is to keep playoffs as competitive, fun, and interactive as possible. Because that's why we play. We want to have fun with this. We want to interact with people. Sometimes we want to shit talk. Maybe we just want to have a good time with it. That's the whole point of all of this, right? And it's so boring if you try and talk to someone about it who just feels out of it because they have a losing record and they don't have anything to play for. Now, an example of how my league setup is it's a 10-team league, 8 teams make playoffs. This setup is perfect for me and my league because most of the time no one is eliminated until 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the season. And this is because we play each category leagues. And you could have in the final 2 weeks of the season, you could have your team can just get hot and go 7-2, 7-2, and the guy in front of you, whether you're playing for a better playoff position to face a less competitive opponent or just to make playoffs in general, you can go like 7-2, 7-2, go 14-4, and then maybe the guy in front of you goes 4-5 each week, or 4-5 and 3-6, and you could pick up 6 games, and that could be the difference between moving up a spot or making playoffs. Now, the second way is something that no one else does, but I want to bring it up in this video because I really think this can make your league so much more fun, and that's draft picks. So what do I mean by draft picks? Just like the real life NBA or NFL, NHL, MLB, have this year's results impact the draft order for next year. So before I go any further, won't that promote tanking? And not if you set it up the right way, which will be shown in this video. And one more thing I'd like to point out is the reason I do this in my league is because it sucks having a randomized order. Like, no one who had a bad year the year before wants to come into next year's draft and have like the 8th, 9th, 10th overall pick. And then they'll just feel kind of more hopeless, and it's really just not a fun way to play. And this way, I believe if you have a bad year, you could come back strong the next year by having a high draft pick and getting someone like James Harden or Anthony Davis or Luka, something like that. So going into this setup, first off, how can you set this method up to keep a competitive and fun league? In my league, like I said, there are 10 teams. 8 teams make playoffs, 2 teams miss playoffs. The 2 teams that play each other in the first round of the playoffs, so this is talking about the non-playoff teams. I forgot to mention on the slide. The winner moves on to the 3rd round of the playoffs. So we have 3 rounds of playoffs. We're talking about the first round of playoffs. The winner of the matchup of the non-playoff teams moves on to play in the 3rd round of the playoffs for the 1st or 2nd overall pick in next year's league. And then the loser moves on to the third round of the playoffs to play for the third or fourth overall draft pick. And so the guarantee here is that two teams are going to miss playoffs, but then they will both be guaranteed a top 4 pick in next year's draft, with one of the two teams guaranteed a top 2 pick. Now, in the first round of the playoffs, 8 teams are going to make it, which means 4 of them are going to win and move on, and 4 are going to lose. The 4 winning teams continue to like normal, like in any given league. You move on to second round, you play in that round to try and win the championship, and that's how it goes. But the 4 losing teams will all compete in a roto-style competition for just 1 week. The team with the highest roto score will go on to play for the first or second overall pick. The team with the second highest roto score will go on to play for the third or fourth overall pick, and then the 2 remaining teams will play each other in the third round for the 5th and 6th overall picks. Now, in the second round of the playoffs, there will be 2 winning teams and 2 losing teams. 2 teams are going to make it on and move on to the championship, and the 2 losing teams are going to be battling each other in the final round, the third round of the playoffs. And the winner of that matchup will receive the 7th overall pick, and the loser will receive the 8th overall pick. In the meantime, during this round, this will be the round in which the 4 losing teams from the first round of the playoffs will face off roto style to earn their draft pick matchup in the final round. So we got a lot of stuff going on in this championship round. So first off, the champion of the season will automatically have the last pick in next year's draft, while the loser of the championship will have the 9th pick in next year's draft. The losers from last round, the second round of the playoffs, will be facing off in this round. And like I just said, the winner will receive the 7th overall pick, and the loser will receive the 8th overall pick. Now, of the 4 owners who lost in the first round of the playoffs, the 2 owners that scored the 2 lowest roto scores in round 2 will compete in this round for the 5th and 6th overall draft picks. The winner will receive the 5th, the loser will receive the 6th. Now, of the other 2 playoff owners, the owner with the second highest roto score will move on to play the non-competitive team that lost its first round matchup. So the winner of this matchup will receive the 3rd overall pick, and the loser of this matchup will receive the 4th overall pick. And finally, the final playoff matchup, the owner with the highest roto score moves on to face the non-playoff team that won its matchup in round 1 against the other non-playoff team. And then the winner of this matchup receives the 1st overall pick, and the loser will receive the 2nd overall pick. Now, for the rest of this video, we're just going to go over a full example. I'm going to break it down in like just another aspect, so everyone can see exactly what I mean. So in this on this table, we have 10 teams, and in the second column, you're going to see all the records. In the third column, you're going to see the seeding. So you have seeds 1 to 8, and then you have 2 non-playoff teams. So by the way, the record, the first one is what it's going to end up as. Excuse me. In a category each league, and then in parentheses, that's what a record would be in like points or most leagues, most category leagues. So now round 1 of the playoffs, we will go over each matchup individually. So actually, I probably don't have to go over it individually, but yeah, we don't have to. So in this whole first table, you have 1 versus 8, the 1 seed versus the 8 seed, the 2 seed versus 7, 3 versus 6, and 4 versus 5. Now, all of the winners in each of these matchups will move on to the second round of playoffs, just like any other league. But the losers, this is where it changes, the losers all compete against each other in a roto-style competition for 1 week. Now, the 2 non-playoff teams will also be battling it out in the first round of playoffs. The winner automatically moves on to the last round to play for the 1st or 2nd overall pick, while the loser automatically goes on to the third round and plays for the third or fourth overall pick. Now, the second round of the playoffs, this is where it gets a little complicated, and this is why I wanted to make a full example so I could show you specifically what I mean. So we have the two playoff matchups still going up on top, and the two winners will both move on to the championship, while the two losers will face each other for the 7th and 8th overall pick. Now, the teams that got eliminated in the first round, which we're moving on to the second table now, the teams that got eliminated in the first round, let's just say 5, 6, 7, and 8 all got eliminated, while I forgot to mention this earlier, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are continuing to play in the playoffs. So teams 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be playing each other because they all lost in the first round, right? So I'm just made up random roto scores. So let's just say Team 5 had the highest roto score, while Team 6 had the second highest, and then Team 7 and 8 rounded out. What's going to happen here is the team with the highest roto score, which is Team 5, will automatically move on to play, let's see, well, if you look at the third table, we're talking about the non-playoff teams in here. Let's just say Team 9 beats Team 10 in round 1. So Team 9 will be awaiting the winner of the roto score, the highest score, to go on and play that team in the final round, right? So Team 5 has the highest score. Team 5 will be going on to play Team 9 for the first and second overall draft pick. So the winner is going to get the first, loser is going to get the second. Now, let's just say Team 10 lost this matchup against Team 9. Well, Team 10 is waiting to play the second highest roto score. So in this scenario, it's going to be Team 6. By the way, in case of a tie, predetermine a tiebreaker category for your league. Like for me, I choose points. Now, let's just say there's an actual tie in points as well. Then I go into turnovers, and then field goal percentage, and then even free throw percentage. Like, it's very unlikely we'd have to go that far, but just predetermine the tiebreaker category and just inform everyone before the season starts. Like that if in case of a tie, especially in playoffs, this is how someone's going to move on. Now let's move on. Oh, and by the way, so teams 7 and 8, the two teams with the final, the two lowest roto scores, those two are going to play in round 3 of the playoffs. All right, so in the championship round, if we look at the matchups, we're going to play 1 versus 2. So 1 beat 4 in the last matchup, and 2 beat 3. Okay. Now the result is Team 1 wins the championship. Team 2 lost. So automatically, Team 1 will have the 10th pick in the next year's draft, while Team 2 has the 9th pick in next year's draft. Now the teams that lost in the second round, Teams 3 and 4, like I just mentioned, will match up. Will have face off against one another. Now let's say Team 3 wins, Team 4 loses. Well, Team 3, the winner, will receive the 7th overall draft pick, while Team 4 will receive the 8th overall draft pick. And then we have the two teams with the two lowest roto scores of round 2, which would be Team 7 and 8. Let's just say in this matchup, Team 7 wins. Well, then they're going to get the 5th overall pick, and Team 8's going to get this. Who lost is going to get the 6th overall pick. Continuing on the championship round, so these are more matchups going on in round 3. The first table is going to be the second highest roto score, which would be Team 6 versus the non-playoff team that lost its matchup against the other non-playoff team in round 1, which is Team 10. Now let's just say Team 6 wins and Team 10 loses, right? Then Team 6 will receive the 3rd overall pick, while Team 10 receives the 4th overall pick. Now on the second table, we're going to be talking about the highest roto score from round 2 versus the non-playoff team that won against the other playoff team. So in this case, it'll be Team 5 the team that had the highest roto score against Team 9, the non-playoff team that beat its matchup, which would have been Team 10 in round 1 of the playoffs. Now let's say Team 5 wins. Team 5 wins, they get the first overall pick, while Team 9, if let's say they lose, they get the second overall pick. So as you can see, Team 5 and Team 6, if we go all the way back to the records, Team 5, you could have a good team or a good record, right? You could go like 90 and 72, or hell, even for Team 6, go 82 and 80 and just have like an above average record, and you could still come all the way down here and have the first and third overall picks in the way I set things up. So it's not just, it doesn't just benefit the non-playoff teams. It benefits teams that lose out on the playoffs early. But if you make it to the second round, like you're showing that you had a good year and that your team was a good team, good enough to win the championship. Like hell, you're in the Final Four, you know. Excuse me. But so this method is good for everyone. So finally, in next year's draft order, based on this year's results, would shape up like this. Team 1, which would have won the championship, will receive the 10th pick, the last pick of next year's draft. Team 2, who lost in the finals, will receive the 9th pick. Team 3, the team that lost in the second round but won its draft position matchup against, who did Team 3 play? Team 4, okay. So they will have won their matchup against Team 4, resulting in the 7th overall pick, while Team 4, who also lost in the second round, will receive the 8th overall pick because they lost to Team 3. Now, Teams 5, 6, 7, and 8 all lost in the first round. The only difference here is Team 5 had the top roto score in round 2, while Team 6 had the second highest roto score, and Team 7 and 8 had the third and finally the last lowest roto score. And that determines where you go move on to in terms of the final round on draft positioning. So in the final round, Team 5 will have won its draft positioning matchup, and that's how they move all the way up to the first overall draft pick, while Team 6 will have won its draft positioning matchup as well, but since they had the second highest roto score, they will have the third overall pick. Now Team 7 and 8 will play against each other. Now let's say Team 7 and 1, like I already stated. Team 7 will receive the 5th overall pick, while Team 8, the team that lost, will have received the 6th overall pick. Now, Team 9, which was a non-playoff team, but won its first round draft positioning matchup, which was against Team 10, will have moved on to the third round. So they didn't have to do anything in the second round. They automatically move on to the third round and to play for their draft position, which would have been either the first or second overall pick. But in this scenario, they lost their third round draft positioning matchup, which was against Team 5. So they will receive the second overall pick. Now Team 10, the other non-playoff team, will have lost in this scenario, will have lost their first round draft positioning matchup, which was against Team 9. Now they don't have to do anything in round 2 either. They automatically move on to round 3 to face off against the second highest roto scored opponent. So let's just say in this scenario, they lost. They lost their third round draft positioning matchup, so they go to the 4th overall draft pick. Now, here are some reasons to try this. It's a good way to keep the league fun. Now, it is some work, but if you watch this video and you can follow it and understand it, it's definitely worth it. Now, there's nothing worse than having a randomizer fill you in for a late pick several years in a row, especially when you're struggling in fantasy basketball. Maybe you're one of those people that just struggle year after year, and you're always getting that last pick, and you might have in the past considered giving up on fantasy basketball because it's just not for you, but in reality, it's just you're not given a fair shot. Well, that's just one reason why you should try this. Or just on a more fun, basic fun level, maybe your favorite player is James Harden or Luka Doncic. Well, you can't draft them at 10th overall or 9th or 8th. Like, you have to have a top 3 or 4 pick. So maybe you don't get them every year, but if you have a bad year, you're guaranteed, or at least much, much, much more likely to get your favorite player, in once every 2 years if you have one good year and then one bad year. Another reason to try this is everyone will feel like they have a chance at the top player every other year. Like, who doesn't want James Harden on their team? Let's face it. Like, the last 5, 6, 7 years, he's just been the best option. He's just been killing it. Who doesn't want that? Another reason to try this is you can still have a good year, and with some bad luck, maybe you have a really good team and you lose in the first round of playoffs. Well, you could still get a high draft pick. So it's worth trying because it's balanced out no matter how you look at it. Like, you have a really good year, maybe you get some key injuries at the wrong time and drop out because you lose in the first round. Well, instead of being heartbroken, which you probably will still be heartbroken, you can still at least fight for a high draft pick next year and come back strong again next year and try and win a championship next year. And the last reason to try this is because highly competitive players can challenge themselves, as it'll be significantly harder to win back-to-back championships. Do you ever just have that guy who just kind of got lucky a couple years in a row and he just shit talks you over and over again because, he got the first, second, third overall pick, and, he got James Harden every year, or Anthony Davis, Luka, and for years back, like KD or LeBron, and he just wins every year, and it just kind of getting repetitive. Well, you're going to see how good he is in this method, because if he wins a championship, well, he's going to have the last pick. He's going to have leftovers. And, I mean, if he could do it 2 years in a row like that, well, that just proves how good someone can be. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope a lot of you guys try this, and I hope you find it very informative. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, please like the video if you thought it can help you, and please subscribe.